Hello guys, and welcome to this course where we are going to build and deploy a modern responsive React.js portfolio website with theme customization feature using React 18 and CSS 3. Throughout this course, you will use some React hooks like the useState hook, the useRef hook, the useEffect hook. We will be using the context API together with the useContext hook for consuming our context value. We will be using the useReducer hook, which is mostly going to be used when we get to the theme customization setting or feature. You will know how to use React portals. We will also be creating some custom hooks to make our lives easier. We will be creating some reusable components. You will know how to use simple contact options on your website. You will be creating carousels with SwiperJS. You will learn how to create scroll review effect during this tutorial. You will learn how to create filterable portfolio or projects. Now, as you are going to see in a minute, this website is going to be mobile responsive. So you will learn how to create modern mobile responsive elegant websites using CSS. Now with CSS 3, we have variables, so we are going to use variables in this tutorial, which is going to help us with the theme customization as well. And it's also going to help us prevent repeating ourselves. You'll be learning how to position elements on your website using CSS. You will be learning how to use the flexbox and the grid system to align elements on your web page. Now we will be using the media queries to make our website responsive. Okay, we will be creating some breakpoints for different devices to make our website responsive on mobile phones, tablets, and desktops. Since we want to achieve a very responsive website, we will be using some CSS units like the rem units, percentage, viewport height, and then viewport width units, which are very good when it comes to building responsive websites. Also, we are going to design an elegant floating nav for tablets and mobile phones for this website. Now, the most interesting feature on this website, in my opinion, is the custom theme. This theme customization feature that we have, right? And we are going to explore that in a minute. But first, let's see what we have on the page. So we have this navbar, which is fixed. So no matter how far down we scroll, we are always going to have it on the screen. And on the navbar, we have our logo on the left. You can change this logo to be your logo. You can change anything on the website. At the end, this is going to be yours, right? So you can change it anyhow you want. Okay, we have the nav links, which are going to take us to the different sections of the page. And then we have our theme customization icon right here. So we can click it and our modal shows up to customize our theme. Now we have this main header section with our image, the name, that's going to be your name, and this text right here. And then we have two action buttons. Okay, so these two call to action buttons. The first one, which is the get in touch, is going to take us to the contacts, and then the second one will bring us to the my projects section or the portfolio section. Now we have the socials here, so these are going to be your socials, so you can click and it should bring you to your social media, so your clients can click any of them to view your social media. Now scrolling down, we have this about section with these cool hover effects for the cards. Okay, so we have experience, projects, and then clients, right? And then your clients can also download your CV. Okay, they can download your CV and read more about you. We have this cool hover effect with the image here as well. Now let's scroll down to the next section, which is the services section. Here there's not much to talk about. You can see we have the cool hover effect, which is really cool. And notice the animation on scroll. Okay, the scroll review that we have for the different sections, right? I'm going to show you how to do that as well. Let's go to the next section, and this is the portfolio section. Okay, now the cool feature here on the portfolio section is the filtering. Okay, so people can filter the different projects that you have here. Okay, so here we have only one backend project. For the front end we have 5 projects. Okay, they can also click the link to go to the GitHub, which is going to show the source code or the project. Okay, a live demo of the project, right? And the UX, we have 3 projects here. Okay, so in all we have 9 projects. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to filter your projects as well. Now let's scroll down to the next section, which is going to be this testimonial section. Okay, and you can see we have auto scroll, but we can also scroll or we can swipe, okay, to see the testimonials. Okay, so your clients are going to swipe to see the testimonials that you have on your website. All right, here too we have frequently asked questions. As you can see here, we have some frequently asked questions, and if your clients have more questions, of course they have to be able to reach you. So we have this simple contact section. Okay, so they can reach you via email. They can just click and then enter a subject. Okay, all right, and as you can see, your email, okay, your email is directly going to be populated. So they just have to enter the subject, the body of the message, and then send. Okay, and you are going to be able to receive this in your email. All right, so when I come back to my mail, as you can see, I didn't even refresh. You can see the email here, right? So we have the subject, which is this, that's what I entered, and we have the body. Okay, so it's that simple. All right, let's go back. You can also be reached via messenger. Okay, Facebook Messenger. So on click of this link or on this icon here, they can directly message you here. Okay, right, and send you a message. Okay, I'm going to show you how to do that as well. And lastly, through WhatsApp. Okay, so on click of that icon, all right, and lastly we have the socials here. In the footer section we have the copyright text here, and we have the nav menu or the nav links here as well. All right, let's scroll up and let's check out the theme customization feature that we have here. Okay, so we can change the primary color. So as you can see, all the primary colors have changed. Okay, as you can see here, all the colors, all the elements that use the primary color have changed. Even if I close this, let me close the browser. Okay, I'm going to copy your on localhost 300. Okay, 3000, sorry. I'm going to close this and reopen the browser. Okay, pasting the link again, and let's see what happens. You can see this is the theme that I selected. Okay, let me try that again so that you know this is real. And I'm going to change the background as well. Okay, so I change the background and I close this. I open the browser again, pasting the link, and as you can see, the theme that we chose persisted. Okay, and we're going to use local storage to save the theme that we select. Okay, so we can change the theme around however we want, as you can see, and all the elements are going to be updated. Okay, which is really cool, and this is the coolest feature on this website, at least in my opinion. Okay, all right, we have the frequently asked questions section here as well. Everything should work exactly as we tested in the first time. All right, now let's see how this is going to look on mobile phones and tablets. All right, so this is how our website is going to look on mobile. And as you can see, we have this floating nav, which is going to disappear when we don't need it. Okay, so whenever we pause to read anything on the screen, this will disappear. Okay, and as you can see, the floating nav also updates depending on the section that we are on. So as you can see right now, we are on the about section, and as you can see, that's the section that is highlighted as the active nav, okay, or as the active element. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so we scroll down, and as you can see, we are on the services section right now. So that's the services section, or the services link updated. Okay, we go to the about, and that's what is updated. Let's go to the portfolio, and as you can see, that's the section that is updated. Okay, we scroll to the contact, or let's click to go to the contact section, and that's the updated link that we have. All right, so everything is looking amazing on mobile. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and open the theme modal. Okay, everything is looking amazing. Okay, here too we can of course filter our projects or the portfolio. Okay, we have only one for backend. Right, let me change the theme again and make this red and white background, and this is what we have. All right, now let's see how this is going to look on tablets. Okay, so I'm going to choose a tablet device here. And this is how our website is going to look on tablets. Of course, we still can change the theme. Let me use the pink. Okay, we still have our floating nav, and of course it's going to update depending on the section that we are on. Okay, if I stop, then this is going to disappear in 2 seconds. Okay, and if I start scrolling again, it comes back up. Okay, it reappears. All right, okay, so this is the project. This is what we are going to build in this course, and we have a lot to do, so let's get started. Now this project is going to be deployed at the end of this course, and that means we will be uploading the website files onto the internet and make it available for everyone around the world. And having used tens of web hosting over the years, the one that I always recommend for the quality of service is Hostinger. So we are going to go to hostinger.com/egator, and this is the best discount link on Hostinger. And during checkout, we're actually going to use a coupon as well to get 10% off, to get an even bigger discount. All right, so make sure you use this link for your purchase. Okay, all right, so this is the Hostinger homepage. It changes over time, so don't be worried if this is not a homepage or if it doesn't look like this. Now let's scroll down and see the packages that they have. Okay, so they have one here for web hosting, and this is actually their premium shared hosting package. Okay, and this is going for only $2.49 per month. And with that package, we can be able to host 100 websites. We are going to have 100 gigabytes of SSD storage. They're going to give us a free domain name, all from this $2.49, right? They're going to give us a free email and a whole bunch of stuff, okay, which are all free for the premium shared hosting, and all for $2.49 per month. All right, so I think this is the perfect package for me, so I'm going to add that to my cart. Now for the period, I'm going to choose the maximum, which is the 48 months. That is going to give me the biggest discount. And here I'm going to enter my email. Make sure there's actually your email. So we enter our email. I'm going to choose PayPal for my mode of payment. And as you can see here, our total is $119.52. And by entering eGator as your coupon code, you are going to get an even bigger discount. You are going to get 10% discount off this purchase. All right. So make sure you use the link and then you enter the coupon code. And by doing so, you are going to get the biggest discount on Hostinger. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and submit secure payment. Let's go ahead and claim our domain name. As you can see here, they are giving us a free domain name, right? So let's go ahead and claim that. So your domain name is going to be your website name. And in this case, I'm going to choose eGator Pro. I want the .com version. So let's choose .com right here and check if that is available. All right. So thankfully that is available. So I'm going to go ahead and claim it. A free domain name. How amazing is that? All right, so I have all my details entered. I'm going to go ahead and finish this registration. So you should make sure you check your email for verification. And now let's proceed to work on this project. Now this course is not for absolute React beginners. So if you're watching this, I assume you have the basics of React down and you have some tools installed already. But I'm going to still walk you through or show you some tools that we are going to need for this project. And the first tool we need is npm. All right, so come to this website, that is nodejs.org, and install Node. Okay, Node actually comes with npm. We don't need Node. We are not going to write any Node.js code, but we need npm, which Node comes with. Okay, so we are going to install Node. You can install any of these versions, and by installing Node, by downloading and installing Node, you are going to have npm, which we are going to use to install some packages and do some other things along the way. The next tool that we are going to need is VS Code. Now this is not actually required. You don't need VS Code to write React, but this is my favorite editor and this is what I'm going to use throughout the project. We will be installing some extensions in VS Code as well. So if you are using a different text editor, you may not have that extension in your editor. Now the last tool here that I'm going to show you, or that I'm going to use, is Chrome. Okay, so this is what I'm going to use to test our project. All right, so those are the three basic tools. Download and install them, and let's proceed. Now that we have the necessary tools installed, let's go ahead and create our React app. Now there's no right or wrong place to create your React app. You can create a folder here on your desktop, name it React Portfolio or whatever you want. But I'm going to create mine in my Udemy folder here, okay, in eGator. Right, so I'm going to create a new folder and name it React Portfolio. And I'm going to open this folder with VS Code. That's the code editor we installed, right? All right, I'm going to close this and I'm going to open a terminal. Okay, VS Code comes with an integrated terminal, so we are going to click here and then open a new terminal. I'm going to type clear to clear the terminal, and I'm going to run npx create dash react dash app, okay, and a dot. Npx is a package runner, and that is going to create a React app for us. Okay, now make sure you have an internet connection and then hit enter, and this is going to install a React app for us. And this is going to take a while, so I'll be back when it's all done. Alright, we have happy hacking, and that means our React app has been successfully installed. So we can do npm start, as you can see here, and then hit enter to start our development server. Alright, so this project is going to open in our default browser. Alright, so we have our React app running on localhost 3000, as you can see, right? Now there's not the app you want, of course, so we are going to create our own. But before that, let me introduce you to a few extensions that we will be using. Okay, now the first one is material icons. Okay, you don't need this, but it is just going to give you the right icons for your files. Okay, the second one, which is the most important one, is this ES7 Plus React Redux React Native snippets. Okay, this is a really cool extension that is going to give us some snippets for our React components and all that. All right, now the last one is this auto imports. So we install these extensions, and now let's proceed. Now, instead of cleaning up the code inside these files, I'm actually going to delete all the files in our source. Okay, in our source directory. All right, so I'm going to highlight all the files here in our source and then delete. Okay, now we don't have anything in our source folder, which is cool. I'm going to go into my public folder as well and delete all the files in there. Okay, we are going to write everything from scratch. Good. Now I'm going to bring in our assets. Okay, from the finished project, we have some assets here. I'm going to bring in those assets. So let me actually bring in the whole folder. I'm going to paste it here in our source, and I'm going to delete these two folders. Okay, so the dribble and then this new folder, we don't need them. I'm going to provide you with all these assets, by the way, so check the attached file for this lecture. All right, so here we just have some images that we are going to use for this project, and we have a PDF as well. Okay, so that's all you need for this project. Of course, you can use your own images. All right, so I'm going to go ahead inside my public folder, and I'm going to create our index.html file. This is the only HTML file we need for this project. And with Emmet, I can do doc tab. Okay, and this is going to give me a boilerplate, as you can see. Let's give our project a title. I'm going to call this Responsive React Portfolio Website. Come on, with theme customization. I think that's a good title right there. And in our body, we only need a div with the ID of root. Okay, so that's Emmet, by the way, so I can do hash and then root, and this is where our app is going to live. Okay, in between the opening and closing div tag, that's the root ID. This is where our app is going to live. Okay, so now let's go back into our source folder right here, and I'm going to create another folder. Okay, I'm going to call this components. This is where our components are going to live. Let me minimize this, and inside the source, I'm going to create our index.js file. Okay, this is where we are going to link our app to our HTML. Okay, to our HTML file. All right, so I'm also going to create a few more files inside our source folder. I'm going to create our app.jsx file. So I'm going to do RAFCE and then enter, and it's going to give us a React functional component. Okay, this is an arrow function, a React functional component, as you can see, and this is going to be our main app, okay, our root app component. Right now, you don't need to import React since we are using React 18, but you know what, I'm just going to delete it. Okay, all right, now we have our app components. Now let's create a file inside the source folder again, and that is going to be index.css. Okay, nice. Now let's go into our index.js, where we are going to link our app component to our HTML root div. Okay, and here we are going to import React DOM from React DOM/client. Okay, we are going to create a constant here called root, and we are going to create a root here. Okay, now that's going to be the root div. Okay, the div with the ID of root that we have here. That's going to be where we want to render our app component, right? So we are going to select that root ID using document. I'm going to use query selector here, and we give that an ID of roots. Okay, so that's our root created, and now I'm going to call the render method on this root. Okay, that's our app component that we want to render inside that div, and we should make sure we have our app component imported. Okay, and that's it. Okay, so let's save and check out our project again, and we have our app, okay, which is coming from this app component right here. Okay, if I should change this to hello world and save, we are going to have hello world. All right, perfect. Now I want to have the basic folder structure for the whole project. Okay, so I'm going to create a folder in our source again, and I'm going to call this sections. Okay, this is going to have the various sections of our project or of our page, and I'm going to create another folder inside our source, and I'm going to call this context. This is going to have our context code, every code that we have for the context, or every file that we will be using to manage our global state. And finally, we are going to have one more directory in our source folder, and that's going to be theme. Okay, our theme folder. Now we are going to work on the theme, context, and then the components folder as we work along, but for now I'm going to create all the sections that we are going to need for this project. Okay, so inside our sections folder, I'm going to have another folder in there called about, and this is going to have, so inside our about, we are going to have about.jsx, and I'm going to do RAFCE. I'm going to put this inside a section instead, a section with the ID of about, right? So we have a section here with the ID of about, as you can see, and we don't need to import React, so I'm going to delete that. I'm going to create another file inside our about folder. Okay, and this is going to be the CSS for this section, so I'm going to call this about.css, and let's make sure we actually import that. Okay, so we are going to import ./about. Okay, so these files are in the same folder, so we use ./ and then about.css. This is a CSS file. We need to add the extension. Now before we proceed, I don't think I linked the CSS file for the index, so I'm going to come back here and then import index.css. All right, let's go back into the sections folder and create another section called contact. Okay, this is going to be for the contact section. Let's create our JSX file. So contact.jsx. So I'm going to do our FCE here as well to create a React arrow function component. Let's import contact.css, which we should create. This section also is going to have a section or a section tag with the ID of contact. Okay, so that's what we have. We should create the CSS file contact.css. All right, let me minimize these two. Now let's create another. Sorry, this should be a folder. Let's create another folder, and this is going to be frequently asked questions folder. Okay, I'm going to create the JSX file rfce. I'm going to import frequently asked questions.css. There is going to be a section as well with the ID of frequently asked questions. Okay, that's what we have. Let me type in something here. Let me have an h1 or an h2 that says the name of the section. Okay, I should do that for the other sections that we just created. Okay, so I'm going to copy this h2 and then paste it here. This is going to be for contacts. So that's the contacts section, and this is going to be for about. Okay, now I can close this, and yeah, I have the CSS imported, so that's it. All right, now that's the frequently asked questions section. Let's create another section or another folder, and that is going to be floating. That's going to be the floating nav. Okay, which is going to be for tablets and mobile phones. Okay, so this is going to be called floating nav.jsx rfce. We are going to import our CSS file. Okay, there is going to be a section. Actually, I'm not sure what it is going to be, but let's give it a section with the ID of floating __ nav. I'm not going to have anything in there for now, so yeah, we can just close this. Okay, I should have the CSS file as well. Yeah, I'm going to close these two, close the frequently asked questions as well. I'm going to create another folder, and this is going to be for the footer section of our web page. And let's create our JSX rfce import footer.css. This is going to be inside the footer semantic tag. Okay, let's have the h2 here that says footer. That's all. All right, let's have the CSS file. So I'm going to create footer.css, and we have that imported already, so we can close these two. I'm going to minimize all these. I don't know why they keep opening. Now let's create another folder, and I'm going to call this header. That's going to be our main header. So we have header.jsx rfce. This is going to be inside a header semantic tag, and I'm going to give this an ID of header as well. Let's have an h2 that says header. Okay, don't mind the spelling mistake here or the typo there. Just let's forget about it for now. We are going to import the header.css, and let's make sure we create that as well. So header.css, and we can close these two. Let's move on to the next section. That's going to be the navbar section. Okay, so we have floating nav and we have navbar. Okay, there is a difference. This one is going to be for tablets and mobile phones, and it's going to be for larger devices, okay, desktops and all that. Now let's create the JSX file. So navbar.jsx refce is going to be inside a nav semantic tag. I'm just going to have an A2 here as well. That says navbar. Okay, let's make sure we import our navbar.css, which is not yet created, so we should do that. So navbar.css. All right, let's close in these two. Go on to the next section inside our sections folder, and that's going to be the portfolio section of our website. Okay, let's create the necessary files. So portfolio.jsx refce, import the CSS file. There's going to be a section with the ID of portfolio. Let's have the H2 that says portfolio, and we should make sure we have the CSS file here as well. So portfolio.css. Let's close them. And the last two, I think, so inside our sections folder, we are going to have services. The services folder. Let's create our services. So this is going to be our services section. So refce, we import services, the CSS. There's going to be a section with the ID of services and an H2 that says services. We should make sure we have our services.css file as well. Let's close them. And the last component that we are going to have, or the last folder that we are going to have, is going to be the testimonials folder. Okay, so testimonials, there's going to be the testimonial section. Okay, so testimonials.jsx refce, import our CSS file, and there's also going to be a section with the ID of testimonials. Okay, let's have an H2 here. We should make sure we have the CSS file as well. So testimonials.css. All right, and our main file structure, or our main project structure, is all set. All right, now if we check our project from the browser, you can still see only the hello world that we have here. Okay, so let's bring in the components that we just created. All right, now I'm going to wrap everything inside a main tag. Okay, and we are first going to have our navbar, and with the auto import, that is why immediately I have the component and hit enter, we have the component imported as well. Okay, so once you have the component here, if you don't have this, you are going to have an error in your browser. So after having the component here, make sure you import it as well. Okay, and the next component is going to be our header component. Now the next component that we are going to import is the about component. Okay, so I have the about imported as well. We're going to have the services, and that's it. Okay, that's it for now. Let's go back to our browser, and we have an error. Contacts, what is wrong there? Okay, so let's check our contacts component here. Okay, so this should be contact.css. Okay, you guys got me there. All right, let's see what else. Frequently asked questions. All right, we don't have the CSS file. Okay, so that's done as well. And lastly, header. Okay, so let's check our header folder, and this should be header. Okay, good. And that's all. Okay, so let's check, and we have our components. Okay, so Navbar header, about, services, portfolio, testimonials, frequently asked questions, contacts, and lastly we have our footer. All right, so now we can proceed to start working on these components. Okay, now before we work on the various components that we have, I want to have some general styles, okay, in our index CSS before we proceed, right? And this is going to help us along the way. We are going to have our variables, some browser presets, some general classes, and all that here, okay? And this is going to really help us along the way. Okay, so now this is linked to the index.js, as you can see here. So we can right away, for instance, I'm going to give the body, come on, the body, I'm going to give that a background of red, just to make sure it is actually linked. Okay, and we have a bloody red background, right? Now what I'm going to do is put this side by side so that at least we see what is happening in our browser. So come on, I didn't save this. All right, so I'm going to keep it this way for now. Okay, now I'm going to select every element on our page and zero out the margin. Okay, so give it a margin of 0, a padding of 0. Every element is going to have a border. Okay, so some inputs have borders, so give them a border of 0, outline of 0. I'm going to set the list style for our unadded list to none. Anchor tags have underlines, right? So let's remove those, and that is using the text decoration. I'm going to set those to be none. We don't need any underlines, and I'm going to set the box sizing to be border box. Okay, and this is going to make sure every element is boxed in with its styles. Okay, so for instance, if we have 100 pixels element and we give it a 10 pixel padding, that means it is still going to be 100 pixels contained. So the 10 pixel padding is going to be contained in that 100 pixel. All right, so that's the basic style that we have for our browser presets, or all the elements that we have are going to have these styles applied to them. Now, as I said earlier, we are going to have some variables. Okay, we are going to use CSS3 variables, right? And I'm actually going to bring them in. Okay, I'm not going to type all these out, so I'm going to cut this and then paste it in here. Okay, and explain to you what is happening, right? I'm actually going to explain these colors when we get to the theme settings. Okay, but for now we have some colors for our project. So we have primary color, the color white, the color lights, black color, and all that. Okay, we have some variables here which are going to be used for the width of our general container class. So on desktops we are going to have 76% for the width of the container, but on tablets and phones it's going to be 90%, right? We have some border radius here as well, and our transition. Okay, our general transition variable here, right? And we can proceed. Okay, I'm going to talk more about these colors when we get to the theme customization section, but for now we can proceed, right? So I'm going to target my HTML tag or HTML element and give it a scroll behavior or smooth. Okay, and this is going to, you know what, I'm going to pull up the finished project. Okay, and it's going to be inside incognito. So let's go to portfolio 2.aggregator.com. Okay, so this is the finished project, as you can see here, right? And the scroll behavior that we have here is just going to make sure we smoothly scroll to the different sections that we have. Okay, so that's the scroll behavior that we have on the HTML tag. Let's target our body as well, and we are going to change the font of this project. Okay, this font is not nice, so I'm going to go to fonts.google.com, and the font we are going to use is Montserrat. Okay, that's the name of the font, and we are going to select from the 300 font width. I'm going to get the 400 regular. I'm going to get the medium. I'm going to get the semi bold and the bold. Okay, and that should be enough. So let's actually import this in our HTML file. So I'm going to copy this and go back into my HTML. So inside public, I'm going to import this here. Let me leave a comment and then paste. Okay, beautiful. I can close this back, and our font family. Okay, as you can see here, we can change our font family. So I'm going to make this smaller again. I'm going to paste this, and now we have the Montserrat font. Okay, so let's proceed. I'm going to give our text a line height of 1.6 and a font size of 0.9 rem. By default, the root font size is 16 pixels, so 0.9 rem here is going to give us 16 times 0.9, 14.4 pixels. Okay, so if I should change this to 14 point, come on, 4 pixels, it's going to be the same thing. Okay, so that is the rem unit that we should be using, and this is going to be very effective when it comes to responsive design. Okay, so this is the unit we will be using instead of the pixel. So as you can see here in the variables, I'm even using it already. Now I'm going to have a general container class here. Okay, so let me leave a comment here, general container class. All right, and from the finished project, let's make a reference. This is going to help center our elements. Okay, so as you can see, we have some margin on the left side and on the right side. Okay, so our elements are centered on the page. Okay, and that is due to the general container class that we have. All right, so we are going to give this class to a lot of the sections that we have on the page. Okay, so this is going to be called container, of course, and let's give this a width of the variable container with LG. Okay, for large, right here, that is 76%. Okay, so we are using that variable right here, right? I'm going to give this a margin in line of auto. Okay, so margin on the x-axis is going to be auto, and a maximum with 1920 pixels. Perfect. Now I'm going to copy this comment, and we are going to have some more styles here, and this is going to be for the sections. Okay, so all the sections on the page are going to have this style. So let's select all the sections and give them a padding 10 rem for the top and then 0 for the left and right. We are going to give them a background of the color light, okay, which is up top, and let's give it a transition, okay, of the variable transition that we have up top. Okay, we have let's see, yeah, right here we have a transition here which is all 500 milliseconds ease. Okay, right, so from there we are going to have, you know what, first I'm going to select all the even sections that we have. Okay, and for those I'm going to give them a background of color white. Okay, so let's save, and you can see the odd sections starting from the about. This was inside a header tag. Okay, so that is why we don't have that style, but as you can see the section starts from the about, and as you can see that is the light color that we have. Okay, but the even ones, okay, so the even ones have the white color. So starting from the service, the testimonials, the contacts, those have the white color, right? The footer also, we used a semantic tag. That's the footer semantic tag for that. That is why it's by default white. All right, now let's proceed, and I'm going to select a section or the h2 which is directly a child of the section tag. Okay, so from the finished project we are going to have the headings. Okay, there's going to be h2 where is going to be inside the section tag. Okay, directly a child is going to be a direct child of the section tag. Okay, so this one as well, we have one here as well. These are all going to be direct children of the section tag, including this paragraph. So we are going to select those. Let me minimize this. We are going to select those and give them a text align of center. We want to center them. Okay, now as I said, the paragraphs are going to be direct children as well, and for those let's text align them as well to the center and give them a margin of 0.5 for the top, auto for the left and sorry, this should be rem, auto for the left and right, and 4 rem for the bottom. Let's actually give it a width of 40% as well. Now let's have another, let me actually copy this comment. We're going to have some more styles here. Now I'm going to target all the anchor tags, okay, all the links that we are going to have on the website. And you know what, from this place, okay, remember I said the text decoration of every element to be none. Okay, so usually it's only anchor tags or links that have the text decoration or that underline by default, so you could bring that style here. Okay, but I'm just used to having that inside this. Okay, so that is why I did that. Okay, so first let's set the color to be color white. Okay, and give it a transition as well, and the transition is just to smoothen any hover effects that we will have in the future. Okay, so that is that. I'm going to copy this comment again, and let's style our headings. Okay, so general heading styles, those are going to be the h1s, the h2s, h3s, h4s, h5s, h6. Okay, let's give those a line height of 1.1 and a color of color black. Now that is enough. Let's proceed and target each one of them. So the h1s are going to have a font size of 3 rem. The h2s are going to have a font size of 2 rem. Let's target the h3s. Font size of 1.6 rem should be good for those as well. Okay, so you can see the font size changed for the h2s. Let's target the h4s. Give them a font size of 1.1 rem. The h5s, a font size of 0.95 rem should be good. And lastly the h6. Okay, let's give those a font size of 0.8 rem. And I think that is all for the headings. Okay, now let's style our images. Okay, let's have a general style for our images. So okay, so let's target that class and display block. Okay, let's give those a width of 100%, and let's set object fit. This should actually be the image tag. Okay, the styles for the image tag. So they are going to be displayed block inside of their parents, and they are going to be 100% of their parents, and the object fit is going to be cover. Now let's have some general styles for our buttons as well, and I'm going to give this a class of btn. Okay, let's style this class. First, we are going to display inline block for all our buttons and give them a width of fit content. We are going to display flex and align items to the center. Okay, now you may ask, why am I displaying flex in the first place? And that is because looking at the finished project, for instance, this button, it has two elements. Okay, this text and the icon. Okay, so we display flex, which puts them side by side, and then we align items to the center. Now let's give a gap of 1 rem in between the elements in case there is more than one element inside the button, and give them a background of color light. Okay, now the color itself, that the text or the icon color, is going to be color black, and give them a padding as well, a padding of 0.6 rem for the top and bottom, and 2.5 rem for the left and right. Now let's give it a border of 2 pixels solid and going to be transparent by default. On hover, we are going to change the color. That is why I set it to transparent, and the border radius is going to be the border radius 2. Okay, we have some variables for border radius right here. Okay, so that is 0.8 rem for the border radius, and that's going to give it that rounded edges. Okay, or that curved edges. I'm going to set the cursor to be pointer as well. All right, so that's for the general btn class. I'm going to copy this, and we are going to have some more styles here. So on hover, we want to change the background color to be transparent, border color to be light, sorry, that's the variable color light, and set the transform translate y. So translate on the y-axis, I'm going to set that to 0. or negative 0.5 rem. Okay, and that is going to give it the micro interaction effect. Okay, that lift that happens when we hover. All right, so that is the styles for the hover. Now the button class is going to have additional classes. Okay, some are going to have additional classes, so let's have some styles for those as well. The first one is going to be the white, and for those, they are going to have a background of color white. Okay, this is by default light, but for the white class, we give them a background of color white. And let's do something on hover as well. On hover, we want to set the background to be transparent and the border color to be color white. Right now, btn primary, okay, those are going to have background of the primary color, of course, and the color. One thing, let's go back to the finished project, and I'm going to show you something. If I change the theme background, notice the color, the text color for our button does not change. Okay, and that is why I'm going to set this color to be white. Okay, instead of using the variable white color, right? And let me actually leave a comment here. Now let's proceed and have some hover effect for the primary color as well. So on hover of our primary color, we want to set the background to be transparent and the border color to be the color primary color, and the text color is going to be color primary as well. And the last class that we are going to have for our button is going to be SM, okay, for smaller buttons. Okay, so let's give those a padding of 0.5 for the top and bottom and 1.2 rem for the left and right. All right, so that is for our general classes. Okay, that is for our general classes. Now I'm going to have some media queries for our general styles as well. Okay, and instead of me typing it all out, I'm just going to paste it. So we have one for tablets, as you can see here, and we have another for phones. Okay, so I'm using 600 pixels and below for phones. That means this or these styles are going to take effect below 600 pixels devices, and these are going to take effect below 1024 pixels devices. Okay, so we have one for tablets and one for phones. All right, so we can now proceed to start working on our components. So I'm just going to close this file for now, and we are going to start with our navbar. So let's open our navbar folder and go into our navbar.jsx. We already have our navbar inside a nav semantic tag, and we can proceed from here. Okay, so let's have a div here with a class of container, which is the general class that we styled. And also let's actually have another class here of nav underscore underscore container. Okay, and this style of naming classes is called BEM. Okay, BEM, which is block element modifier. You can read more about it. Now in here we are going to have our logo, which is going to be inside an anchor tag. We are going to have our nav links, which is going to be inside an added list. And lastly, we are going to have our theme customization button or icon. Okay, so our link here is going to have our logo, which is going to be an image. So let's import that image. Okay, so before the CSS importation, I'm going to import logo from, let's go up into our assets. Okay, so inside our source folder we have assets, and inside our assets we have logo.jpg. Okay, let's check that right here. So right here we have logo. Okay, so this is the logo that I'm going to use. Right, you can use your logo, of course, and here we can have that logo here. Okay, so you enter JavaScript mode and we bring in the logo. Okay, let's just say logo. Now in this and other list, we are going to render a list. Okay, but before that, I'm going to give this UL a class of nav menu. Okay, so nav underscore underscore menu, and in here we are going to render a list. But before that, I want to bring in a file. Okay, and that is going to contain the list that we are going to map through. Okay, so we have a data array which has objects, and each object has an ID, a link, and a title. Okay, so this is what we are going to map through, and notice I'm exporting it as a default export. Okay, so in our navbar we can right away import data from data. Okay, since it is a default export, you can actually name it whatever you want, so you don't have to name it data. All right, so here we are going to map through that list or that array. So we are going to get the data. Each iteration or each object in there, I'm going to call it item, and we are going to use an arrow function here, return an li. Okay, and inside the li, of course, we should have our link, and we are going to have our href here. So on the item object, we should have a link. It should be the link that we have. Okay, so we have home, about, services, portfolio, and contacts, right? So we get the link, and in here that's going to be the title. So item dot title, and since there is a list, we should give this li a key to uniquely identify all the elements or all the items. So that's going to be item.id. Remember, we gave each object an id, right? So that is what we have here as well. All right, so we save, we come back to our project, and we see nothing, and the reason is because all the links are white. Okay, so if I should go back to our general css file, that is the index, uncomment this, come back to our project, we should see our links. Okay, so for now let me actually leave that commented. All right, now let's come back to our project or to our navbar. Now on click of the logo or the logo link, I want the page to be refreshed. Okay, so this is going to refresh the page, that is index.html, and let me actually give this link a class name of nav logo. Okay, nav underscore logo. Now this button is going to have an icon to open the theme modal, okay, so that we can customize our theme. Here is going to be done later, but for now I'm actually going to give this an id of theme underscore icon, and we should have an icon here. So we are going to use React icons. Okay, so let's open a new terminal. I'm going to clear this, and we are going to install React icons. Okay, so npm install react icons save. Okay, and this is going to install React icons, and while that is installing, let's go to our browser and search React icons. Come to this website, and you can search any icon you want here. Okay, so I want color. Okay, something that is okay, so I'm going to use this. I will just click, and it is going to be copied to my clipboard. React icons is done installing, so we can right away import our icon. Okay, so we are going to import, and we are importing this as a named import. Okay, we are importing from React icons. Okay, slash the initials, which is io, and render it as a component here. Okay, so we save, come back to our project, and we should have our icon. Let me make sure I save that. Refresh, and we have our icon. Okay, all right, so we are done with the JSX for the navbar. Okay, so let's head on to the CSS and give this some styling. Okay, so for the CSS, I'm just going to, all right, this should be good. All right, now let's target our nav, and let's give that a width of 100 viewport width, and this is going to span the entire browser screen. Okay, let's give the height. So our navbar is going to have a height of 5 rem, which in this case is going to be 80 pixels. Okay, 5 times 16 is going to give you 80. Let's display grid and place items to, come on, place items to the center. Okay, and that is going to place the container that we have. Okay, so this div is going to place it right in the middle. Okay, so that is what wraps the other elements. All right, now let's give this a background. Let's give it the color primary background and position this fixed. Okay, so that we always have it on the browser screen. It's going to be 0 from the top and 0 from the left. And for now we can't really see because of our image, so I'm just going to hide our image for now, just for the moment. Okay, now let's give the navbar z index of 9 so that it sits on top of everything on the page, and give it a box shadow of 0 for the x-axis, 1 rem for the y-axis, 1.5 rem for the blur, and there's going to be an HSLA. Okay, so hue, saturation, lightness, alpha. The hue is going to be the primary hue. Come on, primary hue. The saturation is going to be 68%. The lightness is going to be 42, and the alpha is going to be 20%. And let's give it a transition as well, the variable transition. Now I'm going to uncomment this, and now let's target the nav container. Okay, so nav underscore underscore container, that's the direct child of the nav. So let's give this a display of flex. Okay, now our image has been adjusted. We are going to justify content to be space between. Let me actually make this smaller so that you see it well. And I'm going to align items to the center. Okay, so vertical alignment is going to be that. Now let me target the nav logo, okay, which is the link with this image. Okay, with the logo we have here, and I'm going to give that a width of 2.5 rem, and this is going to be the same for the height. Okay, so height of 2.5 rem as well. Okay, depending on your logo, you probably don't need to give it a height, you only need the width, but for me this is a perfect square. That is why I have it this way. Actually, you know what, I'm just going to remove the height. The width should be enough. Let's give it a border radius of 50% to make it a perfect circle, and I'm going to give it an overflow of heading. Perfect. Right, now let's style the nav links. Okay, even now I think we can uncomment the link color. Since we have a background, we can uncomment this. I'm going to target the nav menu, which is the unadded list. I'm going to display that to be flex and give a gap between the elements. Okay, so a gap of 3.5 rem should be good, and our nav is ready. Okay, now let's target the icon that we have here, which is the theme icon. So we give it an ID of theme underscore underscore icon. Let's give it a background of transparent and the color of white. Okay, let me give it a font size. Give it a font size of 2 rem, and I'm going to give it a cursor of pointer as well. We save, and this is what we have. And as you can see, we have our header section hidden below the header, and that is because we set the position of this header to be fixed. Okay, so we're actually going to take care of that when we get to the header section, but for now we should have a media query. Okay, so on tablets and on mobile phones, I don't want this nav menu or the nav links to show. Okay, so let's hide nav menu on tablets and phones. That's the comments. So the media queries for this is going to be max width, come on, of 1024 pixels. All right, now here we want to target the nav menu and display none. Okay, so if we go Let me minimize this. So that's the breakpoints right there. So on tablets and on phones, we are not going to have the nav menu, which is what we want. Okay, we are actually going to replace that with the floating nav. All right, and that is all for our nav bar for now. That is all for our nav bar, and we can move on to the next section or the next component, which is going to be our header component. Okay, so let's go to our header JSX. I can now close the navbar JSX and the navbar CSS, the data as well. I'm going to close that. We already have the ID of header, so I'm going to have a div in here with a class of container and another class of header underscore container, which is going to be specific to this header, right? Since there's the general container class, that's going to be specific to this header. All right, so in here we are going to have our header image, or let's actually call this header profile, and we are going to have the image here. So let's actually import this up top. So I'm going to import header image. That's the name I'm going to give it. I'm going to import that from, let's go up into our source folder and let's enter our assets and get the image, which is the header.jpg. Okay, let me show you real quick. So in our assets, we have header. Come on, yeah, header.jpg. This image right here. That's what we are importing, and that's what we are going to use here. So the source is going to be the header image. Okay, let's give this an alt portrait. I think that should be good. You can give this a class of header profile or header image or header portrait, whatever makes sense to you. Now from here we are going to have an h3. This is going to say our name, so the name is going to be Hajia Bintu. Below this we are going to have a paragraph, and the text inside this paragraph, I have it here, so I'm just going to copy and paste it. Okay, below this paragraph we are going to have some call to action buttons. Okay, so we are going to have a div that wraps around those buttons. The first one is going to go to the contact section, and this is going to say let's talk. And the second one, the second link, let me duplicate this, is going to go to the portfolio section, and this is going to say my work. All right, let's save this, check out our project, and this is what we have. Perfect. And below this we are also going to have, that's from the finished project. As you can see, we have some socials, so we should have those as well. So below the header CTA we are going to have header socials. You can make this a UL if you want, but I'm just going to make it a div with a class of header socials. And in here we are going to render a list. Okay, now let me bring in the data file, okay, from the finished project. I'm just going to drag this and paste it in here. All right, so in here we have some icon imports. Okay, so as we did in the navbar, you can go to this website and import the icons. Okay, so we imported, I already imported some icons, and we have an array, a data array here with objects. Okay, so each object has an ID, a link to your social. So in this case, this is going to be your actual social media link. Okay, so you open your social media, you go to profile, and then you copy that link and paste it here. Okay, so the first one is going to be Instagram, and that should correspond to the link. Since this is going to Instagram, we should have the Instagram icon here. So we have Twitter, which is the second ID with the icon Twitter that we have. We have Dribble, GitHub, and the links also go to Dribble and GitHub. Okay, so go to your profile and copy the links and paste them here. All right, but if you want to follow along, of course you can use this data that I have. Now let's go back and let's import that data. Okay, that data array. We're going to import data from data. Okay, it's in the same folder. And now data.map, we are going to map through. I'm just going to call this item, and we want a link or an anchor tag. Let's give it a key of item.id. The list items, the href is going to be item.link, and let's give this a target. Okay, I want this to open in a new tab, so I'm going to give this a target of blank. Okay, so underscore blank, and we should give this a real attribute as well of no opener, no referrer. And there's a security measure that we are ensuring. All right, and this isn't going to be a self-closing. Okay, so in here we are going to have the icon. Okay, so item.icon, which is coming from the array. Okay, so we have the ID, which we are using as the key right here. Okay, we have the link, which is going to take us to our profile, and then we have the icon as well, right? So that is set. All right, so we save that. We come back to our project. Let's check it out. Let me refresh this. And okay, so we have the icons, but the same problem we have. You know what, let me actually uncomment this totally. Okay, so from the general styles, since we gave our links a white color, that's why we can't see them. Okay, so now we have our icons. Okay, all right, so I think we can proceed to the CSS for this header section. Okay, so let's go to the CSS, and it is already linked, so we can right away style it. And of course, these links should take us to our profile. Okay, so you should have your links, and they are going to take your clients to your social media profile. All right, let's get back and style this header section. Okay, so let me make this smaller. All right, so we have our header in the header semantic tag, so we can just get that. That's the only header we are going to have on this whole website. And let's give it a margin top, okay, of 5 rem, which is the height of the navbar. As you can see, the header is heading, or some parts of the header is heading below the navbar, okay, because of the fixed style that we gave it, right? So we save, and now it is pushed down. Okay, now let's actually give it a height of, we could do 100 viewport height. Okay, we could do 100 viewport height, but remember that will mean this margin is going to make it go a little too much down. Okay, right, so here we are going to calculate 100 viewport height minus the 5 rem that we have. Okay, and what is going on? Yeah, all right, now let's proceed and display this to be grid. We are going to place items to the center as well. Give it a background of color white, and I'm going to give this a transition as well. All right, now let's target the container, which is the direct div. So that's actually header container specifically, and let's display this flex. Okay, that's going to put it side by side, which we don't want, so I'm going to change the flex direction to be column, and it's going to stack it on top of each other. Let's give it you know what, the image is too big. So right now, let me target the image which we gave a class, or the parent, which is the div wrapping the image. We gave that a class of header profile. Remember, let's give it a width of 18 rem, a height of 22 rem. Come on. Okay, so we have that. Now we can come back here and continue with the styles of the header container. Now I'm going to align items to the center and also position relative. Okay, we are going to eventually position our header socials to be absolute, right? And since the parent of this is going to be the header container, we should have a relative position, okay, so that it is positioned well when we get there. All right, now let's continue with the header profile, and I'm going to give it a border radius of 9 rem for the top left, 9 rem for the top right, 2 rem for the bottom right, and then 2 rem for the bottom left. Nothing happens, or you don't see anything because the image is not making a show. So I'm going to set the overflow to be hidden. Okay, now you see everything clearly. All right, below this, let me actually give this a margin bottom of 1.5 rem. Okay, save, and that's what we have. All right, now I'm going to target the paragraph. Okay, so the header container, I'm going to target the paragraph inside of it and give it a width of 35 rem. I'm going to text align to be center and give it a margin of margin of 0.6 for the top, 0 for the left and right, and then 2 rem for the bottom. Okay, so we have that. Now I'm going to target the CTA, which has the 2 links. Okay, that's the contact link and then the portfolio link. So we have the header CTA, or header call to action. That's the class we gave it, and we are going to display flex, align items to the center, and have a gap of 1.2 rem between them. You know what, we should give them the btn class, okay, that we have in the index, right? We have some button classes already, so here we can give this, that's the let's talk, let's give that a class name of btn and primary class. Okay, so this is going to have both the btn and the primary class. So we have that styled, which is coming from the index.css. okay, so I can again uncomment, come on, our link here. Okay, and this btn is coming from these styles that we have. Okay, so we have the btn styles, and we had a btn primary styles as well, okay, with the hover and everything. All right, you're going to have the source code so you can make reference to all these. Let's go back. I'm going to close this. All right, and also I think we should give, that's the second link, we should give that a class name as well, btn and light. Okay, we save, come back to our project, and that's what we have with cool hover effects as well. Okay, perfect. Now let's target the header socials. Okay, that's the social media links. Let's target that and position it absolute. It should be on this side. Okay, you know what, let me actually give this a background. That's the header container. I'm going to give it I don't know, a green background so that you see the positioning well for the header socials. So we get the header socials, that's the class we gave the div that wraps around the social media links or the social media icons. So we position it absolute. Okay, and now this is where it is at right now, but we want it to be 0 from the left and 0 pixels from the bottom as well. Okay, so now it is positioned here. We display flex, and the flex direction is going to be column as well. Okay, now let's have a gap of 1 rem between the elements. All right, now I'm going to target the links. Okay, so you've seen how the positioning works, so I'm just going to remove this green background. We don't need it. Now let's target the header, socials, and the links inside of it, and give it a width of, come on, a width of 1.8 rem. Let's do same for the height, 1.8 rem. And if you have any element that has the same height as the width, you can give it a width, all right, and give it an aspect ratio of 1:1. Okay, so when later you change the width, the height is also going to be changed. Okay, and now we can see, so I'm going to give this a background of color light. Let's actually give it a color. Okay, so a color of color black. Let's display grid and place items to the center. Okay, so that we have our icons in the center. And also let's give it a border radius of border radius 2. Let's actually do 3. Okay, which is a variable that we have in the index.css. Right, I'm also going to have some hover effects. As you can see, there is no effects here. There are no effects on hover. Since I'm going to give them a hover effect, let's have a transition. Okay, so actually, you know what, maybe you don't know about transitions, so let's have the hover effect first, and you'll see the importance of the transition once we have the hover. Okay, so on hover of any of the social media links, we want the background to be the color primary. The text color, or the icon color in this case, is going to be color white. We want to have that micro interaction as well. Okay, so for now, let's see, we have the color change. All right, okay, so we actually have the transition working because we have a transition on the link. Okay, the general link style that we had in the index CSS, we had a transition there, so we don't need to have a transition here as well. Okay, but for the micro interaction, I want these links or these icons to shift a little bit when we hover over them. Okay, so I'm going to transform and translate on the x-axis. Okay, and this is going to be negative 0.5 rem. Okay, so we hover and we have this cool hover effect. Perfect. And that's basically all for the header section on desktops. Okay, now we should have some media queries. So we are going to have 2 media queries. Okay, one is going to be for tablets. Okay, so this is going to be the tablets, and we are going to have another one later on. Okay, so let's have the media query. This is going to be max width of 1024 pixels and below, and here we are only going to get the header and give it a margin top of 0. Okay, we don't want to give it a margin top on tablets. Okay, so let me shrink this down. Okay, so this doesn't look good right here, but we are actually going to render or use the browser render, okay, to see how it is actually going to look on tablet device. All right, another thing we want to do is to give it a height of 100 viewport height. Okay, so we save, and this is what we have. Okay, so since we remove the margin top, we should remember to give it a full height. Okay, remember here we actually calculated and subtracted, so we should change that to this. All right, so that's for the tablets. I'm going to have another for the phones. Okay, so for smaller devices, and that's going to be 600 pixels and below. And here, actually, you know what, let me just shrink this to around or should I actually just use a real device? Yeah, so let's have an idea what is going to happen here. Okay, so on mobile phones, I want to get the header profile and give it a width of 14 rem. Okay, so I'm going to reduce the width and the height as well. I'm going to reduce that to 18 rem or 17 rem. Okay, so we have that. Let me actually give a max width as well of 60% and a max height of 35 rem, or let's do 35 viewport height instead, not rem. Rem will be too much. Okay, now let's get the header container p, or the header container first, and then the paragraph inside of it. Okay, the width this time is going to be 100%. Remember, it was around 35 rem, okay, on desktops, but here we are setting it to 100%. Next, we are going to get the header CTA and give it a gap of 1 rem. Okay, the gap between these two buttons is going to be reduced a little bit. Now let's get the header socials and display none. Okay, we don't need that on mobile phones. Okay, we're actually going to have it in the footer section, so we don't need it here on the header section or in the header section. And that's it, guys. That's all for this header section right here. Okay, so we are done with the navbar and the header section. Now let's move on to the next section, which is going to be the about section or the about component. So I can close these 3 files and then head into our about, okay, JSX. Now I don't think I showed you how the header section looks on tablets, so this is it. Okay, this is the header section on mobile phones and on tablets. All right, perfect. So we can proceed to the about section right here. All right, now we are going to remove this h2, we don't need that, and we have a section with the ID of about already. All right, now inside here we are going to have a left and a right side. Okay, so let's have about underscore underscore left, duplicate that, and we are going to have a right side as well. Okay, inside the left side we are only going to have an image, and let me actually wrap a div inside or around this image. Okay, so about, let's say profile, let's just do portrait. So about portrait, and let's have our image inside of this. Okay, so we are going to import an image. So let's import, I'm just going to say about image from, let's go into our source and into our assets folder, and let's get about.jpg. okay, so that's what we are going to render here. So let's enter JavaScript mode and get about image. Now on the right side we are going to have an h2 that says about me. Below that we are going to have a div with a class name of cards. Okay, about cards. And right here we are going to have a reusable component that's going to display from the finished project. As you can see, we have some cards here. Okay, so there's going to be a reusable component that we are going to create in a minute. But before that, I want to skip this, and below the cards we are going to have some paragraph that's going to say something about us. So let's have a paragraph, and I have the text here. The first one is going to be this. Just copy that and paste, and the second one, let me just copy that right now as well, and I'm going to have that inside a paragraph tag as well. Okay, now below this paragraph, you are going to have a link to download our CV. Okay, so our potential clients should be able to download our CV. So let's actually import the CV, okay, which is a PDF file. So we are going to import CV from, let's go into the source assets and get the cv.pdf. Let's add the download attribute so that we can be able to download this, and let's actually give this a class name. Okay, there's going to be a button, so let's give it a btn class, and we want it to look like the primary style. Okay, so it will have that primary color and all that. All right, now the text is going to say download CV, and it is going to have an icon beside it. Okay, so let's go here and you can search download. Okay, any of these you can use, but I'm going to use I think this is okay, so that's what I'm going to click on. It is going to be copied to my clipboard. Come up here, I'm going to import that as a named import from React Icons library /hi or hi, which is the initials that we have, right? So I can right away render this here as a component. Okay, so let's save this, come back to our project and see what we have. And there's it. Okay, our button is perfectly fine. As you can see, it is already styled because of the general styles that we have for the buttons. So we can actually click this and it is going to download our CV. Okay, so that CV or that PDF should be your actual CV so that clients can read about you. Now let's go on to create the reusable card component before we start this section. Okay, so in our components folder, we are going to create card.jsx rfce for an arrow functional component here, and let's actually create a css file for this as well. So card.css, right? We should make sure that is imported here. We don't need the React import. So card.css, perfect. Now this card is going to be inside an article tag. Article, okay, and let's actually give this a class name of card, and all this is going to do is render a children prop. Okay, so we should make sure we get the prop. Okay, so right away we can actually, okay, so you know what, we can do props, right? We can get the props, come down here and actually destructure it here. Okay, or we can do, since we have the props, we can do props.children, right? Which is still going to work. Okay, but I'm used to destructuring the props right here. Okay, so I'm just going to destructure the children prop and then bring it in here. Okay, inside the opening and closing tag, children. Now in case we add another class, okay, when we instantiate this component or this function, in this case, we should be able to accept any class name that is put onto it. Okay, that is added to that the instance of this function, okay, of this card function. Okay, so we're actually going to get a class name, or we will be expecting a class name prop, and let's actually expect an on-click prop as well. Okay, since we are going to use this card when we get to the frequently asked questions section, I want to have an on-click prop here as well. Okay, so for the class or the class name that we have here, I'm actually going to remove this, and we should do this dynamically. Okay, so let's enter JavaScript mode. We should have the card class by default, but let's add any other class that is passed onto the instance of this card component or this card function. Okay, so let's bring in the card prop that we have here. Okay, and for any on click, prop that we have, we should have this on click here as well. Okay, we should just pass in the on click prop that we have. Okay, and that should be it. Okay, that should be all for this card component. Now this card component is going to have some CSS. Okay, so let's get the card class that we had on it and give it a background. Okay, color white, that's the background. Give it a padding of 1.5 rem, a border of 2 pixels solid, and it's going to be transparent by default, but on hover we are going to change the color, which is going to have a really cool effect. Now the border radius is going to be the variable border radius 1. Okay, I think that's around 2 pixels, sorry, 2 rem, I'm not sure, but it's in the variables. Okay, so you can check it out. Now let's give it a transition. Okay, so that we smoothly, or we have a smooth hover effect or a smooth transition. Right now on hover, I want the background of any card or all the cards to be transparent. The border color is going to be color white. We are going to give it the micro interaction effect. Okay, so we're going to transform and translate on the y-axis. Okay, negative 0.5 rem. Good. Now some cars are going to be light. Okay, they are going to have a lighter background. You're looking at the finished project, as you can see here. Since there is a white background, the card should be light. Okay, so that we have some difference or some contrast between the elements, right? So we are going to have card light. For those ones, the background is going to be the color light, and that's all we need here. But we are going to have a hover effect for these ones as well, and on hover we are going to have a transparent background, and the border color is going to be color light. Okay, cool. We should have a media query here, which is going to be very simple. So media queries is going to be for phones alone. Here I want to get a card and give it a padding of 1.2 rem, and that's all. Okay, so this is the card CSS. All right, perfect. So now we can actually use this card component or this reusable card component in our project. Okay, which is exactly what React is about. Now this section has a data array as well, so I'm going to bring that in. Okay, so let's bring in that array. Okay, so here we have some icon imports. Okay, so of course you can always come to this website and then search any icon you want, but I have them here, which is what we are using in here. Okay, so we have a data array with objects. Of course, we have the ID, the icon, the title, and the description. Okay, so those are what we are going to have rendered in the card. Okay, so let's come back to our JSX or about JSX, and in here, which is inside the about cards, we are going to have our card. Okay, so first let's import the card component. So card from let's go up into components folder and card. Okay, and that is what we are going to do here. We should actually import the data as well. Okay, so let's enter JavaScript mode here. So data, we are going to use the map method here as well, or the map function, and I'm going to call this item as always. Okay, and in here we are going to render the card component. Okay, so let me have a return here. We are going to return the card. Okay, and since there's a list, we should have a unique key, and that's going to be item.id. Remember, we had an ID for all the objects right here. We are going to have a class name on this, where is going to be about __ card, and inside the card, okay, we are going to have a span. Let's give this a class name of about __ card icon, and this is going to render the item icon. We have that. Let me actually close this. So below the span, we are going to have an h5, and that's going to be the title. And lastly, we are going to have a small tag, okay, and that's going to be the item description. All right, so we save this, we come back to our project, let's check it out, and this is what we have so far. Okay, remember we have some styles for our card right here, and that is what is taking effect here. Okay, and as you can see from the JSX that we have, we added another class of about card, okay, onto this card component, and that is why we had to add this, or we had to bring in the class name, which is a prop, okay, which is the prop that we passed onto this card component, okay, onto this instance of the card component. Eventually, when we get to the frequently asked questions section, we are going to have an on-click prop as well, and that is why I already have it here, okay, so that we don't encounter any problem when we get there. All right, so now we can proceed to style this about section. Okay, so let's go to about CSS and let's style this. All right, I'm directly going to grab my about container class and display that to be grade. Okay, and I'm going to set the grade template columns to be 35% for the left side and 53% for the right side. All right, so let me actually scroll so that we see this, and this is what we have. Okay, so 35 here, 53 here, so this together minus 100 will give, or will have 12 more remaining, so 12%. I'm going to use that for the gap. Okay, so the space between is going to be 12%, right? Cool. Now we can directly target our about portrait. That's the class we gave the div that holds the image. Let's give that a height of fit content, and I'm going to actually give this a maximum height as well of 40 rem. Okay, depending on your image, you can adjust this. I'm going to give it a border of 1 rem solid color white. Okay, and that's what we have. Let me actually give it a transition of the variable transition. Okay, I want to have some hover effects, so that is why I have the transition there. Let's actually do this right now. So on hover, I want the border width to be 0. Okay, so on hover we have a cool hover effect with this image. All right, let's quickly get on the cards. Okay, right here, so let's target the about cards. That's the class we gave the div that wraps around the cards, and let's give that a margin of 3 rem for the top, 0 for the left and right, and 1.5 rem for the bottom. So we have a decent space there. Actually, I'm going to move this to the right and increase this so that we have a full view of what we are doing. I'm going to display grade. The grade template columns is going to be 3 1FRs. Okay, so I'm going to repeat 3 1FR. Let me have some space between the cards. A space of 1 rem should be, or 1.5 rem should be good. Now let's target the individual cards. Okay, the individual cards, let's target those, and let's text align to the center. Now I'm going to get the icons inside the cards, so give that a class of, remove this, about card icon. That's the class we give it. The font size is going to be 1.3 rem. The color, the text color is going to be color, come on, color black. Border radius is going to be border radius 3. Give it a width of fit content. Margin inline of auto. Give it a pattern of 0.6 rem. I'm going to display flex and align items to the center. Let's save, and we have this. Not a lot of change there, but we are working on this. Now let me set the transition here as well to be the transition variable. Now I want to have a different style when we hover over the cards, okay? But this style is going to be for the icons instead of the cards itself. So let's target the about card, and on hover of this, I want to style the about card icon. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So on hover, we want to change the background to be color primary, and the color, okay, the icon color is going to be color white. Okay, so on hover we have this. All right, now let's have some space between the elements here. So let's target the h5, so card or about card h5. Give it a margin of 1 rem for the top and bottom and 0 for the left and right. That's enough space. All right, good. Now let's target the paragraph text that we have here. So about underscore right, and the paragraph inside of that, I want to have a margin bottom of 0.8 rem. Okay, and finally I want to target this button right here. Okay, so about right and the btn, I want to give that a margin top of 2.5 rem. We save, and this is what we have. Okay, so our about is styled. Okay, as you can see here, we have our micro interaction on hover and all that. Okay, so on desktop we are done. So now let's move on to make this responsive on tablets and mobile phones. Of course, we are going to have two media queries, one for tablets and another for phones. Okay, so this is going to be the tablets. And here, let me actually shrink this so that we see. Surely going to make this a tablet. Yeah, so let's view this on a tablet render so that we see what's happening. So this should be on this side. I'm going to get the image, okay, and that's on the left side. So let's actually display the whole left side to be none. Okay, I don't want the image, this image, I don't want it on tablets and mobile phones, right? And I'm going to get the about container and set the grid template columns to be 1FR. Okay, right, so it spans full screen basically. I'm going to get the h2. Okay, so about right and the h2, the heading that we have here, I want that to be centered. Okay, so text align is going to be centered. Okay, so this is how the about section looks on tablets. Okay, now let's have a media query for mobile phones. So for phones, come on, there's going to be 600 pixels and below. Let's close this. Let's actually choose a phone here, and let's have the styles for phones. Okay, so yeah, I want to get the about cards and the grid templates columns here is going to be 1FR, 1FR. Okay, and I'm going to reduce the gap between the cards to be 1 rem. All right, now let's get the about right BTN. So the BTN, I'm going to push it up a little bit, so the margin top is going to be 2 rem. Right, and I think that's enough. Okay, so that is all for our about section. That is all for our about section, and it's looking pretty good. All right, so let's proceed to the next section, which is going to be the services section. Okay, so let's get back here. Now I can close all these files and get into the services section.